Okay, this is Talking Tax with Tom Yamachika. I'm Jay Fidell, and the title of our episode is Our Love-Hate Relationship with Tourism. But the tagline is the one that really turns me on. It's need it, want it, hate it. We're going to drill down with Tom in a moment. Welcome to your show, Tom. Nice to have you here as always. And this is a very important topic we need to discuss. It's a core point of our economy. So why do we hate tourism, and how do we express that hatred?
Well, it's very interesting. You know, we have a long relationship with tourism. It has since displaced agriculture big time as our primary economic driver. In 1998, which is when our Hawaii Tourism Authority was established, at that time the visitor industry accounted for almost 25% of gross state product and provides over 30% of all civilian jobs. So at that time, and it hasn't really diminished since then, the state committed millions of dollars into tourism marketing through that agency, the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Can I just digress from that point? You know, before that it was the Visitors Bureau or something,
and Hawaii Visitor Bureau,
which was really didn't have that much money. And the notion was not that the Visitors Bureau would buy these ads all around the country and try to sell Hawaii as a tourist destination. It was just more like a trade association. But something happened there. At the time HTA was formed, there was a political maneuver, it's a business maneuver. Mind you, it's the hotels, it's the big hotels, it's the national, international chains, that have so much influence, they could have this established. So up to that point, my recollection, up to that point, the cost of marketing Hawaii as a destination was hotel by hotel or the Visitors Bureau group of hotels. And ultimately, the burden would fall on the hotels themselves. And the hotels themselves earn the money. And they, a lot of them were and are REITs. And they take the profits and send them back to their owners on the mainland. And we don't see a lot of their profits, and we don't tax a lot of their profits.
Well, the REIT thing is I think, a more recent phenomenon, but it's true that the tourism promotion used to be largely industry funded, through the hotels and
so
the Hawaii Visitors Bureau, which was a trade association.
All of a sudden, this became the burden of the state, of the taxpayers in the state. And I've been scratching my head ever since, wondering why. Because the hotels make a ton of money, generally speaking, and they have profits they send back to the mainland. And, it's really hard to justify that the state and the taxpayers could come in and spend many tens of millions, doing their marketing for them.
Well, I think I have a theory about that, and it centers around the transient accommodations tax. We didn't have it until 1986, and we adopted it to fund the convention center. Well, funding the convention center, building it took a while, but it eventually got built. And then there's this money flowing in, and the question is, well, what do we do about it? And of course, some brilliant minds at the legislature said, oh, we should put this into tourism marketing and we should share it with the counties. Not necessarily in that order, but that's kind of what started happening with it. And we have been marketing tourism. Now, the other side of the coin is that there have been undercurrents of, hey, we have too many tourists. We got to get rid of some. And like all sins on the government and on our resources, one way we deal with it is by putting a sin tax on it. So we had the transient accommodations tax in place, and we started ratcheting it up and up and up and up. So first, it was enacted at 5%. Then it went to 6. Then it was 7.25. And then they said, we need to add 2 points to it temporarily. So it went to 8.25, and then 9.25, and then around 2013 or so, we said, well, we need the revenue, so we'll make it permanent. 9.25. We had this rail thing with the with the city and county of Honolulu funding its rail project, coming into a fiasco, needing more money out of it. Let's add another point to it. So 10.25 temporarily until I think 2030 or so. But there's still this problem of, are we going to share this money with the counties? Along comes the pandemic, and Governor Iga said, let's shut off the spigot. Turn it off entirely. And of course the county started, screaming bloody murder. And there was still a dispute raging about whether they should be getting, as their share of the transient accommodations tax, either a set amount or a percentage. They convened a special working group headed by a retired Supreme Court justice, and their recommendation was percentage, which the counties loved, the state hated, and the state didn't enact it. And then finally, in I think 2020, the 2020 session or 2021, I forget which, they solved the problem. They said, all right, fine, counties, here's what we're going to do. That TAT spigot that we turned off, we're going to keep it off permanently. But what we will do is we'll allow you to add 3 percentage points onto it and keep it for yourselves. And we won't help you. You just have to do it. So now what we have on our tourists, and this is kind of where the hate comes from, is 10.25% TAT from the state, 4% GET, 0.5% GET surcharge, 3% TAT surcharge, total close to 18%. Okay. But wait, there's more. Over the past few years, legislators have been floating proposals to say, okay, let's do an annual escalation of the TAT if we don't get our tourist numbers down. So if our tourism numbers are still too high, add another point to the TAT.
That's in a way of discouraging tourism.
That's exactly right. Fortunately, it didn't pass. But there have been kind of proposals along those lines for a few years now. In this legislative session, there's nothing alive, at least so far, because all the TAT proposals were killed. But again, and I know that things that are dead can sometimes mysteriously resurrect themselves later on in the session.
Well, wow.
So right now we've got a love-hate relationship with tourism. We spend the hell out of marketing it, and then we tax the hell out of them when they get here to discourage them from coming.
If I'm a tourist and I go to a hotel, I'm going to wind up getting a bill for, say $200 for my room plus 18%. So the tourist is paying it, and the tourist can see with his own eyes or her own eyes that there's 18% In the case of $200, that would be 30, did I get this right? $36. Did I get that right?
Per night. Yeah.
$36 on a $200 bill. That's a lot of bread. I mean, that's kind of world-class super taxation of tourism. Now, we'd better be good for that much money. We'd better be good, because that's enough to turn you off.
Well, I mean, if you kind of think about the hotel prices in general, uh, they're pretty high to begin with.
Yeah, well, $200 is cheap. It's more like $300 or $400 for, a first class room, or five. I mean, we're really right up there. We better be good. But you know what? What is so interesting? I was telling you before the show, Oz Stender came on a couple of years ago on Think Tech in our talk show lineup, and said, we have too much tourism. We have to cut this out. And of course, he was speaking for the Native Hawaiian community at the time. And I think there's a lot of people in the Native Hawaiian community and the local community, for that matter, who would like to cut back on tourism. And that may be a very myopic point of view, since tourism is arguably, well, not arguably, in fact, it's the largest, largest economy, largest sector in terms of revenue in the state, for sure. And when you count not only the hotels, but all the, ancillary businesses, wow, it is a huge percentage of what we do here to earn our living.
Yeah, so it's not only the hotels, it's the food and beverage, it's the tour attractions, it's the bus companies, the tour companies, everything, all of that rolled into that part of our economy, and there's a lot of it.
So I guess we should explore this notion of, and it really seems obvious from that bill you talked about, which failed. It seems obvious that the sensibility here in the ledge, and among those who would like to undo tourism, is that we should find methods of taxation that will reduce tourism. Very cute, very clever.
Yeah, but you know what it looks like to me? I mean, let's say you're the Hawaii Tourism Authority. You're marketing tourism. I'm the Department of Taxation. So it's like we both have a rope. We're both pulling on the rope. You're pulling for more tourists. I'm pulling for less tourists. And the taxpayers are funding both of us. So how stupid is that, right?
That's right. On the one hand, we're spending many tens of millions on marketing for hotels, and on the other hand, we're taxing the tourists to discourage them. So which way do we really want it?
Yeah, that's why I think we really have a leadership vacuum, not caused by any one person in particular, but and it may be because there is a split of opinion in our population about how much aloha we should be extending toward the tourism sector.
Well, I don't know that, but it's gotten kind of jaded. I had a client for years and years. He came to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, and they treated him like a king. And he brought his wife in a sort of romantic moment every single year. They stayed, in a certain suite. But there came a time when the staff there wasn't there anymore. And the staff was not the same as it had been back in the good old days. And the clerks who handled him and gave him his room, not the same. And so I would say that tourism in Hawaii has changed from the good old days, the Webley Edward days, the Hawaii Call days, where people were so interested in making you feel good. Now, you're a tourist, and I think everybody's looking for your wallet, and you feel it. And so we have that factor also working.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I have we have a friend of the family who comes from Japan and who has come to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel every year. There a couple of doctors from Japan, right? So they come to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel every year. They had been. Now they're kind of rethinking it because The Royal Hawaiian Hotel is different from how it's been, and the environment is different from how it's been.
Yeah. So that's got to be a discouraging feature too. And then, of course, I mean, we can count these up. The other thing is that I think people, and it's everybody locally, doesn't really feel the same way about tourists, and they don't treat them the same way they used to treat them. And they don't go to Waikiki and intermingle with them. There's not a lot of reasons for local people to go to Waikiki anymore. They sort of turned off on that. So you have, silos here. You have the local society in one silo, and you have the tourist society in another silo, and then all it is a money machine. Now, it's okay. Even 18% is okay, but it is not built for sustainability. It is not a sustainable model because these things move. Legislature might increase it more, and people might get a little more, turned off by tourists, and the hotels may get more greedy. And, before you know it, Hawaii, I think it's already happening. Hawaii gets a reputation for being a tourist trap.
Yeah, and I almost forgot to mention that the tourism promotion or demotion at our legislature this year hasn't really stopped because we are still talking very seriously about the so-called visitor green fee. What is that? Uh, under the bills that are still circulating, tourists would be charged a $50 annual fee for a license to visit our parks, beaches, and other natural attractions. And the
Wow.
license would be good for 1 year.
Wow.
And
Or one trip, actually.
perhaps that's
But
probably what it's.
what I mean is if they're going to come once a year, that $50 is really for the one trip.
That's right. And somehow or other, if the Department of Land and Natural Resources is going to have to enforce this, so if you're at a park or a beach and you don't have a license and you're a tourist, then you get fined. So, I mean,
And the fine is more than $50.
well, of course it is. So, I mean, what kind of hospitality is that, right? I mean,
Well, it's not hospitality. And I think what I hear from this conversation, is that we really don't like tourists. We never really loved them, at least not since Webley Edwards. We never really loved them, and we are expressing ourselves. We are expressing ourselves economically, and what we're saying is a real psychological, sort of group psychological point on this. I don't really want you here, so I don't feel bad to overcharge you. I don't feel bad, to hype up the taxi fare. I don't feel bad to hype up the restaurant bill. I don't feel bad, to suck you into my business and overcharge you. And tourists don't know the difference. They pay, but ultimately, I think that's going to catch up with us. I think the rug will come out from under us one day, and when the world recognizes the reality, and other tourist destinations get more active in competing with us, I think we're going to lose our primary engine, the engine of our economy. It lives in these hotels. It lives in Waikiki. And if people don't want to come back anymore because they think it's a ripoff, we're going to see a very sharp decline.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that was a good summary of it. People won't want to come back because it's a ripoff.
And guess what? It is a ripoff.
By design.
Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, this is again, it's a tax thing, and we have to manage our tax. And I really lay this directly at DBED's doorstep. And they're supposed to be the policy givers, the ones who suggest bills having to do with tourism to the legislature, the ones who manage and talk to the hotels and the whole industry. And they don't do that. They're interested.
Oh yeah,
in
we need leadership on this part of our economy, and we look to DBED for it. We look to the governor for it. The governor is the one who's pushing the green fee.
Well, Governor Green pushes a green fee. Would you expect anything else? So, Tom, what would you say to him? He's still fresh in office. He just passed his 100th day or something. What would you say to him about this? What would you say that he should do?
Well, I mean, I think there should be a consistent message coming out of government on tourism. We should not, absolutely not, have agencies fighting each other. That was allowed under the previous administration. It's got to stop. I think Governor Cayetano had it right. He said, agencies you shall not fight each other, either before the legislature or otherwise. If you wanna fight it out, both of you guys come to me and we'll settle the dispute, and then we speak with a unified voice before the legislature.
Brilliant, brilliant, and so efficient. Better government.
I think so. I think that's, one good thing that Governor Cayetano did.
So have you been down to the ledge testifying on the implications of these bills? Have you
Oh
been
yeah.
expressing policy on how we should handle this?
Yeah, I mean, there were even more outlandish bills. There was a bill in the House that would have imposed a 25% TAT rate, either in lieu of or on top of the existing 10.25% for transit vacation rentals. Um, it and it had legs. It was heard by House Finance, but then there was a parade of people who opposed it very very vehemently, and the supporters kind of like hid in the underbrush. So Rep. Yamashita had to defer it.
Hmm. You know, um, I wouldn't say we have to, cut back on tourism, and I certainly I wouldn't say that we have to, bend double to increase it. But what I do say, and what my suggestion to Josh Green would be, is we have to manage it. We have to have policies about it. We have to see ourselves as friendly to tourism because they keep the state alive. Can you imagine what would happen to the tax base, to the kids who are leaving with their feet anyway, if we didn't have as robust a tourist business as we do now? I mean, jobs would disappear, revenue and taxes would disappear. The state would be in a big hole, and we
Yeah,
would
and we
be,
saw that with the pandemic. I mean, you
yeah.
you 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 saw for at least several months what would happen if tourism was entirely shut off.
So, but it's got to be managed. Somebody has to have rational management, not the guy necessarily that is going to spend $40 million on marketing in New York and all that. Not the guy who's going to be involved in these politics with the Native Hawaiian community as to who's really in charge of this. Not the guy that has a vested interest, a siloed vested interest. You have to have some kind of comprehensive at the 50,000-foot level in order to see not only how we treat them now today, and not only how we appeal to them or not today, but the future. They are our future, and we have to look down the road.
And that's I think what we look to the governor's office to do to provide, leadership on policy issues like these.
Yeah. But going to, the sort of the business and the lens of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii, I mean, all of taxation should be looked at this way. Not just this one industry, it's all of tax. This happens to be very important because it's a core industry for our economy, but we have to
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at
I
all
mean,
tax.
one of the problems I think with taxation generally is some lawmakers look at it as a tool for social policy, not to raise revenue, but to manage social policy. And I mean, I frankly uh, don't like the tax system when it's used in that way, but it's a reality of life. Everybody does it.
Yeah, well, they've been doing it since they had the ability to tax. And indeed, there are some situations where if you want to manipulate the economy, you want to stress some sectors more than others. So want to encourage, the development of, for example, I don't know how you feel about this, to Act 221. We all forgot about that. that was intended to develop a tech industry. And it actually was developing a tech industry. And it was tax for policy. But Linda Lingle killed it with a million cuts. And by the time she was out of office, it was dead, make, mort, finished. And, and we never, never recaptured that. So sometimes I have to say, it would have been good to attract people, to give jobs to people, local graduates, for example, in tech businesses. And indeed, the test on that is what happens when 221 fails or was killed, as the case may be. Well, we don't have a tech industry. Zero zippity do, nothing. And so it's really sad. So sometimes I would make an exception to your rule.
Yep. I mean, lawmakers do all the time. So, I mean, and it's not really a rule. It's just unfortunate fact of life.
Well, I always felt that tourism was an easy way out for entrepreneurs in Hawaii. I'm going back to the beginning of my practice. I found a lot of people were not really equipped to do businesses that had to do with tourism. They were short timers and short termers, and they would throw up a business in Waikiki on a monthly tenancy, and just bring in trinkets and sell them like crazy. And if the thing closed down the following month, it was okay with them because this was easy money. And I think we have a culture of easy money. So you have this culture of easy money for the ancillary businesses. You have a culture of charging what the market will bear, which is not a good culture for us, not in the long term. And you have a culture of squeezing the lemon until you can't squeeze it anymore. And to the minds of a lot of people, we haven't reached that point. And then you have a phenomenon of anger and resentment. I don't think this is going in a good direction, Tom.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have to, of course, reconcile all these competing approaches. We need to, put in some education about, you're in our house, please treat it with respect, kind of thing, and I think we're kind of doing a better job of that now. But we are still, giving a lot of mixed messages to the tourist industry, and we're funding both sides of the tug of war. So that I think needs to stop, and we need to just have some consistent direction from our elected leadership about how this is going to go.
Yeah, I would cut out having the government pay for marketing expenses and ads in New York. I would really stop that. Let the hotels do it themselves. It's in their interest, and they make the money, and they spirit the money offshore. Furthermore, I would to the extent that the state wants to spend money on this, I would do two things in terms of marketing. I would market tourism to the state. I would tell people, we have to love our tourists. Have you hugged your tourist today? Let's all get around and show the old-fashioned aloha. Let's
We
love them.
used to do that.
Yeah, we did. And it was a wonderful thing to watch or be part of. I remember so many occasions where I was so impressed that the industry, loved the local people. And the tourists, by reference, loved the local people. Okay, so it's what you said about, hey, be respectful of the local people. And then the other side of the coin is the local people should love the tourists because that's the main source of income in this state. Can you imagine, for example, it's an indirect thing, but what would happen to the real estate market if the tourists weren't around to buy these multi-million-dollar condos? What do you think would happen to the salespeople, the owners, the developers, the escrow? I mean, the whole enchilada would deflate. So all I'm saying is I think there should be marketing locally. You market tourism to the locals, and you market the locals to tourism, and you bring people together again. That is more important than buying ads in New York.
No, I think you got a great point there. Anyway, we're almost out of time, so this policy discussion obviously is going to be continuing, and our current governor has just started his term, so we will see where that goes from here.
Thank you, Tom. Tom Yamachika, president of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii, representing all of us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching Think Tech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.